I picked up a note that my cheating wife threw away, and it changed my life. Well, I'll give her the unforgettable experience she's waiting for. One she'll never forget. I'm Thomas McGregor. Crystal and I can easily be called a typical couple when it comes to likes and dislikes. She has her own hobbies and ambitions, and I have completely different ones. While I play golf and write short stories, she does crafts and is running for a seat on the city council. Unlike state and national races, which have budgets, local elections are mostly funded by friends, family, and some shady characters looking for future favors. She's quite young compared to the old council members who are currently taking bribes. Like any married couple, we don't always see eye to eye, and we have different likes and dislikes, and we have our own sore spots. For example, when I was 11, a stray dog bit me while I was playing Little League Baseball. To this day, the hair on the back of my neck stands up when I hear a dog growl. I don't like dogs, but Crystal loves them. Spiders and snakes don't bother me, but wasps do. On the other hand, Crystal hates spiders, snakes, and anything else that crawls. Want to hear someone act like it's the end of the world? Catch Crystal when a mouse or cockroach crosses her path. Thomas, you have to do something. What exactly, I don't know, just get rid of it. And don't tease me about it. We both love cats, but we don't have any. Our commuting schedules make it too difficult to care for and feed them. Maybe someday our work-related travel will ease up. Who knows, maybe in the future we'll have a family, but definitely not until this election is over. I work in the forensic accounting department and keep track of the money. My files contain information on some of the most ruthless criminals in life. They rob those who can't afford to be cheated. Crystal works in PR at the County General Hospital. She was the face of their community outreach program. Since we have no obligations, we often take trips to warm places with beaches. We prefer to stay at all-inclusive resorts that include an open bar. The resorts provide you with excellent service. As a result, I often get tipsy. Crystal has a problem with this. My being passed out interferes with her having a good time. Anyway, in the end, I relax to take my mind off work. To celebrate Crystal's birthday, we had a quiet dinner at an upscale restaurant, forgo the afternoon treats and liquor, and rush home to have some grown-up fun. Sensing that our week-long intimate interlude might be coming to an end, Crystal complimented me. Well, I'm glad to see you're ready to get back in the saddle. I advised Crystal to take one of the ecstasy pills to enhance the experience tonight. While in Mexico, Crystal always buys some ecstasy for herself and some blue pills for me. Both really give us pleasure. Since we hadn't had intimacy since we got home from vacation last weekend, Crystal got that spark in her eyes and she smiled broadly at me. I led Crystal down the hall to our bedroom. Rose petals were scattered on the bed. A feather to tickle her. She is very afraid of tickling and uses our stop word to get me to stop using the feather. She seems to enjoy being made helpless. That will probably change tonight. Crystal peeked into the bedroom. Oh my God, it looks like I'm going to enjoy myself tonight. Well, it's your birthday, so I thought I'd do it right. Do what you need to do in the bathroom and take a pill. I'll be right back. She literally jumped into the bathroom. I headed to the garage to get my goodie bag. Crystal was waiting for me, sprawled on the bed, nothing but a smile on her face. Roll over, I said calmly. Calm my heart, something will change tonight. She giggled, rolling over onto her stomach. I took the plush-lined handcuffs and attached her hands to the side posts of the bed. Usually I tie her arms to the middle of the headboard. Tonight her arms are wide apart, as are her legs. Yeah, I've got it planned. Let's see how you like it. Securing her other wrist, I slip the bracelet around her ankle and then, with a quick snap, I pull her other leg aside. Let the games begin. Anyone planning on doing it doggy style with me tonight? I've got a couple new gadgets tonight. What's our stop word? Just in case I don't like what you have planned. Usually our stop word is kitten or rainbow or something equally fancy. As I put the gag on her head, Crystal began to squirm. What are you doing, Thomas? Okay, your stop word for tonight is night scoop. Crystal gasped and tensed up. No, no, no. Last weekend. Crystal and I booked a trip to Aruba for 4 days and 3 nights. We arrived on Thursday midday, and I drank too much, passing out shortly after dinner. The next day, I passed out even before dinner. God, I felt so crappy on Saturday morning. I told Crystal I wasn't drinking anymore. I was a mess. Obviously, getting drunk ruined her vacation. To say Crystal was furious would be an understatement. Instead of waiting for me, she grabbed her bag and headed to the beach without even saying goodbye. I didn't really need much time to get ready, so I was out the door within a minute. The elevators aren't very efficient, and I caught a glimpse of Crystal in a packed elevator as the doors were closing. What I did see was some guy she had been flirting with on the first night kissing her on the cheek and slipping her a note. Instead of waiting for the next elevator, I took the stairs down to the first floor. Crystal was slowly walking towards the beach exit, reading the note. As she exited the building, she crumpled the note and tossed it into a trash can. When I reached the trash can, I dug around a bit. That changed my life. Crystal, the last 2 nights you've been a real night sensation. It was mind-blowing. We experienced so much pleasure that I felt like a king. Too bad he's not going to drink tonight, or we could have drugged him again. I'll just look forward to seeing you in Sacramento. See you later, Simon. And the asshole even left his phone number. Well, Simon, buddy, I'll do my best to give you an unforgettable experience. One you'll never forget. I sat down on one of the benches, feeling dizzy, sick to my stomach and heart, and I was seething with anger. What a goddamn bitch. Once my anger cooled down to something less than raving maniac, I headed to the front desk. I spent a large sum of money, after which the assistant manager reviewed the surveillance footage and showed me what Crystal had been doing the previous 2 nights. He warned me that if I went to the police, they wouldn't investigate. Nothing bad ever happens at their resort. Our first evening started with Crystal and me sitting at a large table with about 10 other people. I was drinking heavily and paying too much attention to one of the unaccompanied ladies. Crystal didn't like this and began to pay attention to a guy standing next to her, whom I believe was Simon. I was clearly drunk when Simon whispered something in her ear. She took my glass and handed it to him. A minute later, Crystal was persuading me to finish my drink. 15 minutes later, Crystal and Simon were helping me get to our room. Simon left 6 hours later, early in the morning. On the second day, by evening, we were sitting in lounge chairs on the beach when Crystal went to get drinks. She met Simon after bringing us the drinks. 15 minutes later, Crystal and Simon were helping me up to the room. Simon left about 8 hours later. The rest of our journey was very tense. I wanted to kill her, but I needed a plan before I did anything. Sitting in the airport waiting for the return flight, I had plenty of time to think of a suitable revenge. I smiled slyly as something occurred to me. This night. I don't mind my ex-wife having a lover, but she's not my ex-wife yet. If you're going to date anyone, have the decency to get a divorce first. After tonight, I think she'll file for divorce. Just a guess. When the gag was in place, Crystal couldn't utter another word. There were a lot of tears and slurred sounds. Digging through my bag of goodies, I pulled out a silicone-based lubricant. This stuff is supposed to taste good. Okay, Crystal, it was time for something else. After I put some pillows under Crystal to lift her ass, panic set in. Crystal was trying to get free and I was rubbing lube into her near her rosebud. Her thrashing actually made it even more extravagant. Even though she claimed she hated the unconventional kind of intimacy, she was very wet. However, we weren't going to engage in that, or any kind of intimacy for that matter. I don't want any venereal diseases. Crystal turned her head, but her frown and tears didn't move me. It's time to put my plan into action. Well, Crystal, you seem to like it, but for your birthday I have another surprise for you. Digging through my shopping bag, I pulled out a sealed glass jar with several cicadas and silver beetles sitting in it. I showed the jar to Crystal. The insects twitched haphazardly. I continued. Your soul is up your rear, that's how I attract these little guys to clean the shit out of it. Crystal was muttering something and thrashing around, testing the strength of her restraints. Something may have even sounded like nightshade. I continued my 101 bullshit lesson. Crystal, there's something you need to know about these insects. Once they're in a warm, dark place, they burrow under your skin and start laying eggs. Only about 10 eggs a day, but they hatch pretty quickly. Of course, I'm going to shove about a dozen insects up your anus, so do the math. That's a whole bunch of babies, and that's every day until you manage to gut them. You'll feel them crawling almost immediately. Eggs are hard for even medical professionals to detect. I took one of the dark pillowcases off the pillow and pulled it over Crystal's head. It was hard on her, and she seemed to be terrified. Returning to my bag of goodies, I put the jar of insects back and picked up the glass jar of liquid. Crystal heard the jar open, mostly because I did it over her ear. Ugh, what creepy guys. In fact, the insects were still intact in their jar. Instead, I dipped the anal balls into another jar of liquid gel lubricant. I added the itching powder to the same jar. The package of itching powder had some vague warning on it that contact with internal body parts should be avoided. I don't have the time or inclination to read that. Wait. Let's sing. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday, my dear cheating wife, happy birthday to you. Here's your first present, and I plunged the balloon into Crystal's rear. I felt dizzy as she twitched like a bucking bronco. At each imaginary bug, I let out an "Ew," or "What an abomination." Oh, one tried to run away. Come back, buddy. I dipped balls into it, pretending to stuff a dozen insects. Each dip added another batch of gel and itchy powder. When I was done, I pulled an empty glass jar out of my bag. All done, I said, pulling the pillowcase off Crystal's head and showing her the empty mason jar. She struggled to break free. If that wasn't enough, I grabbed a feather and ran it up and down her heels and armpits for a few minutes. I had to get it off. Crystal did a fantastic job squeezing her buttocks. By lightly feathering her rosebud, I think I had just taken her to the extreme. I've never seen such a look of hatred and tears in my life. Oh, well. One never knows how a spouse will react when they find out about an affair. I'm gonna go get a beer. I'll be right back. I actually had a beer, then took the can of insects outside and let them loose. I felt my hand itch a bit, and I have to say this powder works. Even after a thorough scrubbing, my hand was still itchy. The hand lotion seemed to help, although not for long. After about a half hour, I realized that Crystal was about to freak out. The next part of my plan would probably end in a beating and bruising. What the hell, I used the pen again. Keeping my defensive measures in mind, I slowly loosened the straps holding Crystal's ankles together. Then, resting my knee on her right arm, I loosened the strap but didn't let go of her hand. Reaching around, I released her left arm and then jumped up from the bed. Crystal ripped off her gag while she started fumbling around her ass with her other hand. You miserable piece of shit. I'm gonna kill you. She beat me with the gag. For about a minute I let her bite, kick, scratch, and hammer at me with her fists. I fended off her attempts to damage my testicles. Her itchy ass needed some attention, so she stopped to scratch herself. While she used both hands to pull imaginary insects out of her ass, I bear hugged her and led her to the front door. She kicked my shins and scratched me with her fingernails. I could have easily hurt her by hitting her hard, but I wanted to make it look like I was an innocent victim, so I pushed her off me and jumped back into the house, locking the door. Crystal was left alone with the moths and mosquitoes, naked as at birth. I might add that she was swearing and raving. And quite loudly. All of this is captured on my phone, including her threats. Time to call for help. 911, what's your emergency? My wife took some pill and now she's threatening to kill me. I'm bleeding a little, but I managed to push her out of the house. She's babbling about bugs and kids and saying it's my fault. Please send paramedics because she's completely lost her mind. After confirming my address, they told me that police and paramedics were on their way. Looking out the window, I saw Crystal running around the yard like a dog with an itchy butt. She was shouting obscenities and making it clear that I was going to die soon. She was furiously scratching her arms and legs. Several of our neighbors were enjoying the show. Red and blue lights reflected off the neighboring houses, drawing the attention of more neighbors. Everyone got a good look at Crystal in all her glory. When she refused to stay put as ordered by the officers, they tossed her. She was immobilized and handcuffed, which of course prevented her from scratching. The paramedics were told not to sedate her since they didn't know what hallucinogen she had taken. Strapped to a stretcher with her hands and feet bound, Crystal was telling them about her ordeal. My husband tied me up and shoved bugs up my butt, and they hatched babies. They're crawling inside me. I can feel them. Get them out. I'll kill him. The rescuers just rolled their eyes, probably having seen crazier people than this. Crystal was taken to the County General Hospital with the paramedics. During my testimony, the cops took pictures of my injuries. I told them about the nighttime sexual activity and how Crystal had taken ecstasy to increase her arousal. Then she started talking nonsense and became aggressive. Told them she was buying the pills in Mexico. Hook, line and sinker. They let me treat my own wounds. Said they had to arrest her for domestic violence. If I didn't consent, it wouldn't make a difference. Wow, that's an added bonus. Add to that, she was also charged with resisting arrest. Unlawful possession of a controlled substance and smuggling. Those are felonies. I had no idea. Hell, she's been breaking the law for years. With far more bandages than necessary, I drove to the county hospital to play the role of a curious and caring husband. My hands were still itching as I threw away the bag with cans, anal beads, and itch powder into the trash container at the hospital entrance. The emergency department is what they do, and they go out of their way to help a psychopath suffering from a drug overdose. She was at the very end of the list. They took some blood to determine what drugs were in her system. She was restrained. They gave her a sedative intravenously. She calmed down. Well, at least until she saw me. Yes, they had to give her an even larger dose of sedative. When they took her away, I was told they were going to do a CT scan to once and for all prove that she wasn't infested with bugs. I feigned concern. It was probably around midnight when the attending physician gave me the latest news. Mr. McGregor, as far as we can tell, your wife has taken ecstasy. In fact, we have never observed such a reaction. When the enema revealed no foreign objects, we performed a CT scan, which showed absolutely nothing unusual in the colon or rectum. She has scratched herself quite badly back there. Every time we let go of her hand, she starts scratching again, so we are still keeping her restrained. Even after showing her the results, she is convinced that she feels insects crawling inside her and that they are having babies. We will keep her overnight for observation. She is currently sedated, and hopefully, when the effects of the ecstasy wear off, she will return to normal. Is she still threatening to kill me? No wonder, it causes me great concern. Yes, we have made notes in her chart. As I said, we have never seen such a reaction to ecstasy. I'm sorry. I shrugged, returned to her room, and kissed her sleeping forehead. It's all for show. Lying cheater. Usually, candidates for municipal councilors do not receive much media coverage, but reporters were thrilled by this ongoing circus. Someone must have called the anonymous tip line before heading to the hospital. A candidate for municipal councilor has been charged with domestic violence and resisting arrest. It may be related to a drug overdose. Detained overnight for psychiatric evaluation. With the evidence obtained from the paramedics and the hospital, as well as my video, it was easy to get a court order to keep Crystal 500 feet away from me. I did not file for divorce, waiting to see how it would all end. It can be assumed that she will start legal proceedings. Crystal's parents visited her the next morning, and the ranting, delusions, and death threats did not subside. I told them about the restraining order and her arrest. They understood and said she was handcuffed to the bed. Usually, overdose victims were discharged the next day, but because of Crystal's crazy story about bugs and their babies, and her constant desire to scratch the itchy spot, they kept her for 2 more nights. I think it took that long to get rid of the itchy mixture. Crystal appeared before the judge. Due to the drug smuggling charges, the bail amount was high. But her parents posted bail for her. No one was surprised when I was served with divorce papers the next day. Of course, the press had no choice but to extract a statement from me. Naturally, I was covered in bandages. Mr. Thomas, can you tell us about the events leading up to your wife's arrest? Well, Crystal is a bit of a bondage freak, and after we got into bed, I started tickling her with a feather. Out of nowhere, she turned into an unhinged fury. As soon as I let her go, she went berserk, biting and hitting me. I asked not to charge her with domestic violence, but apparently it's not up to me. There were no further questions. Too much information. We got to the love stories with dirty laundry. Crystal arrived with the sheriff to pick up some of her things. My lawyer allowed her to take only clothes, as everything else fell under the property division agreement in the divorce. I felt that Crystal wanted to say or do something bad to me, but the sheriff watched her every move, and all she could do was give me a nasty look. I pretended to scratch my butt, which almost made her lose it. Crystal lost the election. The press hounded her because of her intimate life and mental disorder. I think she attracted the attention of sharks. A woman who loves bondage and unconventional entertainment was certainly worth hunting. She was transferred to a permanent job at the hospital. They didn't want her face associated with the hospital, but they couldn't fire her. Realizing that Crystal was likely planning to give me unforgettable experiences, I urgently found a job abroad. There was no reason to tempt the gods of revenge. This also protected me from questions when a man named Simon from Sacramento had his bank and investment accounts emptied. The article mentioned more than $250,000. Thanks for the phone number, Simon. These scammers are ready to work freelance. I sent Crystal a congratulatory card. High price for unforgettable nights in Aruba. After a psychiatric evaluation determined that Crystal could stand trial, she was found not guilty of domestic violence charges. The charge of resisting arrest was dropped. She was convicted on drug smuggling charges. Ignorance of breaking the law must have played a role in the deal. 60 days behind bars and a lot of community service. The only thing Crystal wanted to know during our last Zoom meeting about the divorce was, "Someday you'll have to tell me how you did it." Really? You don't even regret ruining our marriage? I'm glad to be rid of you. Screw you, jerk. Tell me about the bugs. There were no bugs. I just tickled you. You need to tell me why you did it. You could have just divorced me instead of breaking your wedding vows. There were bugs. Just tell me. Please. That's how our marriage ended. I don't plan on returning to the States. If you saw the look in Crystal's eyes, you'd completely agree with me. I think there's something wrong with her, but I'm dating again, not showing much interest in long-term relationships. Commitments seem to have their drawbacks that need fixing. Alright, I'll stop with the bug references. I wonder if when Crystal's butt itches, she thinks baby bugs are hatching inside her. Thank you for your time.